Hello, hello, hello. I'm going to do a little editing on this image here in Luminar Neo. And specifically, I wanted to show Luminar Neo's color balance tool. There's nothing really fancy about this image. I took it with my 6D Canon 6D Mark II, my big DSLR, before I traded up for my mirrorless that I use now. But we're going to edit this image in Luminar Neo. Took it at ISO 50. You can see over here. 200. I had my zoom lens on. I was zoomed all the way out to 200. It was my 70 to 200, EF 70 to 200 mm. And there's all the settings there. And I took it on July 16th last year. And we were eating, I forget where we were, the exact location. I can't remember nothing hardly. Anywho, we're going to edit. So we'll click the edit up here. And you can already tell, of course, that it needs straightening. So up here in the upper right, you have your crop tool. And does it have an auto straight? I don't think it does. Actually, I'm not even sure where the there's rotate and flip. There we are. Now, yeah, I did. Horizontal alignment. It did have the auto button right there. I think that looks pretty good. We're going to apply that. Or not. Maybe it needs to be a little bit more. Just a little bit. For some reason, it looked like it was off to me. Okay, apply that. So that's got the horizon pretty straight. And I'm just going to develop like I usually do. When I'm in, this is how I developed my images back when I was using Lightroom Classic. I still use Lightroom Classic, but this is my workflow. I would straighten it in the crop, and then I would and when Lightroom started having their profiles, I would go choose a profile. And sometimes I would use the Adobe or camera. This is since it's a landscape shot, I'll click and see what it does. Camera standard adds a little bit of contrast and whatnot to it. That's camera landscape do. That adds a little bit of color. I kind of like that. We'll leave it on camera landscape, and then I would proceed down to set my lighting, my tone, all the figures over here, the exposure, contrast, highlights, and shadows. And the J key will show me, if you hold the J key in, okay, if you go too much with the exposure, you're going to get blown out. I think the exposure is good right there. A little smart contrast. That's what I like about Luminar Neo. It's pretty smart with stuff. And maybe bring the highlights down, bring some detail back in the clouds up there. All the way, that's too much. Maybe about like so, minus 47 or so. How about the shadows? What do they need? Anything? Open up their shadows a tad. It's not looking too bad right there. And we'll go the blacks and the whites. I wish this would collapse on its own. Over here, when you open up another one, like Lightroom's panels, when you open one, the other one will collapse. I'm not using light anymore, so you got to close it on your own, which is no big deal, I guess, but still, it'd just make it nice if it would close automatically. My blacks, hold the J key in. And it's starting to get blown out. I mean, not blown out, but over dark. You don't have to hold the J key, and you can actually just click on it and it will. So the blacks are down. That really added a lot of contrast when I adjust and it usually does when you adjust your blacks and whites. Let's see what the whites. See, they're not even getting blown out when I bring it all the way up. Which means I might have to do a little exposure adjustment on it maybe. Because adjusting those blacks just made it a little too dark for my liking. All right, that don't look too bad. Now, maybe you can back the whites off a little bit. They're still not getting blown out. Whites aren't, even when I put it all the way up. Nothing's blown out in the whites. Again, I'm so used to Lightroom Classic. But this is just a little quick. Well, not quick. It's not going to be too quick. Not going to get too worried about. I think that's good for now. Let's do before and after and see here. Before, after, before, and after. Okay, that looks all right. Curves, I'm not going to worry about. Sharpness. Maybe add a little bit of sharpness, not too much. Lightroom will sharpen it to 40 automatically when you import your images. It goes to 40 as a default, which I guess that's not too bad. Before and after. Okay, we're looking okay. And again, sometimes I will go back and forth on the exposure after I make major adjustments. After I do my tone, I'll have to adjust. I'm finding that I have to adjust my exposure a little bit more, and it's usually increase. But that looks okay to me. Like I said in the beginning, this isn't no award-winning landscape photo, but I just want to bring your attention to the color balance tool. As we start to get into it down here. And I added it to my favorites. I thought I did. There's no noise in that image. Color harmony. And it is the color balance. I thought I brought that up to my favorites, but I don't know what happened to it. But anyway, this is the tool that really. I've seen Jim Nix. He's a YouTuber, and he does tutorials on Luminar Neo, on one, Photo Raw, and I think he's starting to do them on another, maybe Affinity. I know Luminar Neo for sure, and on One Photo Raw 2023, he does them. He does tutorials for them. This is, and I learned this from him watching him use color harmony, and it targets, and your shadows down here will target. You get your shadows, your midtones, and your highlights, okay? And what this does, it targets these colors in each of those areas in the shadows. And in his shadows, and it depends on a lot of what you're trying to do, what you want your image to look like. But as I was watching his adjustments here and what he went to on them, I wrote them down, and I'm finding that using his numbers on images, like I'm going to use them now, you like make these adjustments and you're done after you make your basic tone adjustments like I already did. We're going to come in here on the shadows, and I'm going to go to the yellow and the blue up to about +10 right there. And you can already see what that's done. It's subtle, but if you look in the darker areas in the shadows over in here and over in here, it just adds that nice blue, just a touch. And that's all he does on the shadows. Well, that's all. That's all he did in the image he was editing. And he says sometimes he goes, he's on all of these, and each one of them he'll go and play around. But like I mentioned, I'm finding where all I need to do is what he did in his final image, and I wrote the numbers down. That's what I'm doing here. And we'll go to the midtones, and I'm going to put a +10 on the cyan red. And we're going to go to a -7 on the magenta green. And that's all he did for the midtones. Man, if that just ain't making that photo pop, then I don't know what is. Look at that difference in that. Just bam. I mean, even the image, it's not that great, but it's like you're looking out your window at this, and you're right there. It's so, well, the lens is a great lens I had on too. It's a 7200 f4L Canon EF lens, one of their luxury lenses. And okay, he went after the midtones and his highlights, and he went to he adjusted all three of these in his highlights. The cyan red, we'll do a +10. The magenta green, -10. And the yellow blue was also a -10. And then he was done. But that just amazed me when I started using this in my photos. Here's a before any color harmony, before the color balance, and there's after. It's just amazing. It just really makes it pop. And with that all said and done, what I like to do is add a vignette. And I like Luminar Neo's vignette because you can choose wherever you want it. How about right there in the middle? And the amount. How much should we go? Another good YouTuber I watch is Anthony Morgani. And I started watching him when he was doing his Lightroom. He still does Lightroom Classic tutorials. But he said here's some settings in here that I want to feather at about 80. But I haven't watched him. I haven't seen him feather much anymore with his vignettes. So now that's too much, and then you just back it off just enough to bring the viewer's eye right in here. Maybe we'll add a little inner light here. Just a little. And there's a before, after. Before, after. I like it. And that, folks, is basically my Luminar Neo workflow. Now, if this image was, superior, if there is such a thing as a superior, I guess there is. You might go up and do a little super sharp AI. This is a new thing they've added. And they have extensions here that you can do all kinds of stuff with. But I'm just not going to do anything like that right now. I think that's okay like that. I think the image is fine. The clouds, maybe, I don't know. Does it need to be a little bit more? They do have here's an enhance. Sometimes I go with here was the sky enhancer. We'll see what that does, because I think the sky could use a little bit. Yeah, now there we go. That's adding a little bit of enhancement to it. Yeah, I like that. All right, I think that's going to do it for this image. There's the before and after. Before and after. Okay, expect to see more Luminar Neo tutorials, and I hope you learned something. And if you have any questions, comments, please put them in the please add a comment. Please add it below in the description. And like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Appreciate every one of you watching my videos. Really do. And we'll catch you in the next one. So long for now.